when we looked at the actual transcribe of this, which we did during the break, and we all heard the part about lock him up, but then we were reading the transcribe, and you realize because he's not talking even in close to complete sentences, that you want to make sure you're taking away from him exactly what I guess he meant at the moment. So I think let's listen closely this time, not just to the lock him up part towards the end, but even at the beginning, take a listen. This is Joe Biden yesterday.
This is a guy who also wants to replace every civil servant, every single one. Thinks he has a right under the Supreme Court ruling on immunity to be able to, if need be, if it was the case, to actually physically eliminate, shoot, kill someone who he believes to be a threat to him. I mean, so I know this sounds bizarre. It sounds like if I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
And here's the first issue I have before we even get to the fact that, they want him, that he's a threat to democracy, he's a threat to the world, he's a fascist, he's a Nazi, the list goes on. He's some agent of Russia. We've heard that one. How long? But I look at the one about the case where he believes that you could eliminate or physically eliminate and shoot and kill someone who you believe is a threat to you. If someone comes into your house at night, you have the right to kill them in the United States. If you've been someone who's been shot in the ear, which is very close, was supposed to be a kill shot, you're going to be more defensive because why? People, there's lots of people around you, even getting close to you, that want to kill you. So this is the message they thought they wanted to get across. And then on top of that is, no, he shouldn't be president. He should be sitting behind bars. For what? Nothing that Donald Trump so far has been charged with criminally is he anywhere close to what Hunter Biden was actually being charged with. And he's making out plea deals on this. So just keeping in mind, it's almost like, and I wonder if we're going to see more of this, Will, from Biden to say these kind of wild statements where the campaign can kind of say, it's Biden being Biden, but you get it in people's minds.
Well, exactly.
And you're talking to the hard left.
And this is at the same time that President Obama is going out there and trying to say that it is President Trump that believes this is a divided country, that there are two Americas, the real Americans that support him and those that don't. But in reality, you're seeing the sitting president go out there and make comments like lock him up, which was supposed to be, oh, no, that's what Donald Trump says about his political opponents. And then he tries to salvage it, I feel like, at the end, because I feel like he thinks that if I say it this way, I shouldn't have said that, they're going to be mad at me. I'll say politically lock him up, which once again, politically lock him up almost is worse to me because politically locking someone up evokes political trials, locking up your political opponents.
We do that. We are a banana republic.
Exactly.
And we are not the United States of America anymore.
Yeah, if you didn't know he was talking
that
about...
enough is you don't have to have a war. America as we know it, no longer.
If you didn't know he was talking about Donald Trump, you'd think he was talking about Kim Jong-un, or you think he'd be talking about Vladimir Putin. You do not think he'd be talking about a political rival. I don't believe there's really a lot of instances where they're talking about the physical eliminate and shoot and kill someone who, that's the quote, he believes to be a threat to him.
Well, and remember that Kamala Harris was the one who joked about on the Oprah Winfrey special that they did, that they tried to make it look like her old TV show. Mm-hmm. But she was the one who was laughing about if someone comes in my house at night, they're going to get shot. Yeah. If he's meaning a threat, and that's clearly the line that Harris believes, but that's where I think he's meaning it even more a political threat or a danger to his presidency.
It more feels like he's talking about a dictator in another country.
I don't think it's not even the reality of the world that we're living in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and take some phone calls. Let's go to Carrie, who's calling, who's an ACLJ champion. ACLJ champions, those that give on a monthly recurring basis to the American Center for Law and Justice, and because of them, we're able to do a lot of things, including this broadcast. Carrie, you're on the air.
Thank you. I wanted to say Biden and Harris, they know exactly what they're talking about. When Harris and Trump had their debate, when she said you're going to hear a bunch of lies, she was talking about herself. Biden and Harris have been doing this and people like them to Trump for 9 years. I want the American people to hear that I have been fighting with Donald Trump for 9 years. So has your dad, Jay.
Carrie, one is, you're absolutely right. The moment he was sworn in, they were going after him. So they started with, remember, sending in the FBI agents to go after Flynn. And when Comey was asked about how he did that, he said, well, I knew they were just in flux over there. Usually, of course, you'd have to be invited, or at least you would give notice and request a time. We just walked over and walked right in, and they thought, as Mike Flynn thought at that moment, that obviously someone had probably set this up in meeting and didn't think twice about it. But so he took advantage of an administration that was still moving into the building. That started immediately. And then we had really a bad decision by our first attorney general in this, who is someone we all had a lot of support for. I mean, a lot of you all supported too with Jeff Sessions, but had so much pressure on him during his confirmation process. Remember, it was about Russia. So it all ties to that. And then so he felt because of that confirmation process, it couldn't be the regular DOJ that looks into this Russia issue and ultimately would have gotten to the same conclusion. So he needs to now put someone like Mueller in place, which, by the way, was could have been a huge distraction to anybody else but Donald Trump. So what they have figured out is lawfare can work in kind of tying you up off a campaign trail, but when you're Donald Trump, it actually gives you more energy and more fire. So what have they switched to now? Extreme rhetoric that could lead to violent acts. Not just violent acts, by the way, Logan and Will, that I think are targeted just at the president, but even like anywhere he is. They want it to be like, if you're around President Trump, the idea of that it's chaotic at the White House, well, it's chaotic everywhere he goes. The point is because people bring in guns and shooting him at him.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point where even if you have a Trump victory, that still is a big concern for the next few months, even maybe more so over the next few months of what that will end up looking like in terms of security. Typically things cool down after election. The question is, will they actually cool down? Will you have moments like President Trump, who went out there and said after he did the whole lock her up to Hillary, because we got to say that's how it all started. But then after he won, said, okay, that was political rhetoric. We don't necessarily mean that. Is that going to happen now? Are they going to say, okay, President Trump, are you going to see President Biden at a Trump inauguration? I'm not so sure. I don't know how that all rolls out. Of course, you didn't see President Trump at Biden's inauguration. The political climate is so much different right now than it has been historically over the last, let's say 20 years, that things are very tense, and we are headed towards a week away, actually 2 weeks away from the general election, but potentially a much longer road to get to any sort of change, even if it is Harris. And look, we have to figure out what the fallout is of that as well. It's going to be a very different world for the next 3 months. You've already seen a Joe Biden that has almost been forgotten, that has almost been a lame duck before he's even obviously a lame duck, but a lame duck presidency and almost a forgotten character in all of this. You saw much more publicity last night for Barack Obama coming out with Eminem. That is happening more. You're seeing more publicity for that than anything that Joe Biden has to say, except for in these moments where there's what would kind of be a gaffe.
Well, in reality, it was at an event in Concord, New Hampshire, rather. Not a place that has been kind of on the target list of states that could be a swing state in this election. Sometimes New Hampshire is. Yeah. In previous elections, it typically is one of those like red herring states where they make you think that maybe it could go one way, but it's been pretty reliably Democrat for president in our lifetime. The difference here is that they are sending him to states that don't even really seem competitive as far as the polls look to do these events. It's not an event that should have gotten any coverage really whatsoever, except for the fact that the sitting president of the United States is talking about the rival party's nominee who is up against his vice president currently, was his former opponent, and saying we should lock him up, and then tries to couch it with the politically lock him up language. It doesn't pass the smell test, but the reason that it's news is because Joe Biden said it at a place that was supposed to not get covered at all.
And his Department of Justice is prosecuting Donald Trump. So we are looking into the potential ramifications of President Biden's statement. Now, I tried to save it at the end. Is that enough? But it does show you that this is the mode they're in. Even if he was to win, they're going to still try and lock him up. and also tie him up and scare people away from joining his administration so that he gets stuck with a cabinet that isn't totally up for the job, which we saw in round one of the Trump cabinet.